Before I get into really what I wanted to talk about as it pertains to this video, I just wanted to let people know that the FBI has released their 2024 reported crime statistics in the nation on August 8, 2025. Of course, this is one of those things that a lot of people don't go and look up or tend to see or seek rather when it comes to them releasing these stats, because they go back to table 43 in 2019 because that's the most recent table that they released as far as overall stats in breaking it down as far as it pertains to race, which we're going to go over in this video. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention and let you know that they do this every year, but a lot of people don't go looking for it because they always refer back to that 2019 table 43. So this is it right here. I'm not going to read too much into it. If you choose so to and you're catching this on the replay from the premiere, you can go ahead and pause it and read for yourself the breakdown that they have for the year 2024. And of course, you know, next year they'll have 2025. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I wanted to talk about not necessarily just this table, but just the whole myth of the black people commit 13% of the crime. No, that 13% of the population and commit 50% of the crime, which has been a thing for way too long. It's become so redundant at this point, it's practically stale. But I wanted to use this as an imagery to highlight the entire commentary that I wanted to do, because like I said, I wanted to break the myth of the whole 1350 thing. And over the years, in recent years, that number has changed as well. Or they've thrown more BS behind it. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Everyone has heard the claim that black Americans are only 13% of the population but commit 50% of the crime. You see it being repeated online, you see it on TV, even by other politicians. But here's the truth of the matter. That statistic is very misleading, it's misused, and most importantly, it is wrong. So now we're about to talk about where that claim actually came from, what the data actually says, and how narratives like this serve as a distraction from the real issues that we are dealing with. Yes, black Americans, they say, quote unquote, make up about 13 to 14% of the population, even though I think it's slightly higher than that. That part is slightly true. But the second part, where they say the 50% of the crime claim, is based on a distortion of selective arrest statistics, especially related to violent crimes like homicide and robbery. And if I want y'all to notice something, where you see on the table where it says under table 43A on the left, if you look under it in the yellow, it says arrest. So that's a very important part, because that often gets overlooked when they start to do that 13%, 50% thing. They often overlook arrest. This is not convictions. As a matter of fact, you had Fakem sitting up there on, I think it was Dr. Rashad Ritchie, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about this table, and they were saying about how Dr. Rashad Ritchie was talking about, no, it's based on arrest. Then you have Fakem on there saying, no, it's about convictions. And it's literally right here. Arrest, not convictions. There's a difference between an arrest and a conviction, but you know, you can't tell them nothing. So people often quote the FBI's Uniform Crime Report, or the UCR, which tracks arrest, not convictions or proven guilt. Even then, nowhere in that report does it say that black people commit half of all the crime. So where does this myth come from? It usually stems from looking at a specific subset of arrests, namely homicides, and then generalizing that across every crime. That's bad math, and even worse, that's bad logic. So let's talk the numbers. What does the data actually say? In 2019, according to the FBI data, black people accounted for 26.6% of all arrests, and white people accounted for 69.4% of all arrests. When it comes to violent crimes, black Americans were arrested 36.4% of all cases, and white Americans were arrested at 59.1% of cases. So yes, black people are very overrepresented relative to their population size, or our population size rather. But 36% is not 50%, and we're talking about arrests again, not who actually committed the crime. Now for homicide, the arrest rate is closer to 52% for black Americans, and that's where the quote 50% number originates. But here's the problem. You can't take one narrow category and say it applies to all crime. That's like saying all crimes are murders, which they are clearly not. In fact, most crime in the US, in case y'all are unaware, are property crimes, not violent crimes. And in those, white Americans make up the majority of arrests. So let's be very clear. Being arrested does not mean someone is guilty. Arrest reflects policing patterns, neighborhood targeting, and officer discretion, and not necessarily criminal activity. Multiple studies have shown that black communities are very over-policed, and that results in more arrests, not necessarily more crime. Look at what they're doing right now in DC. They said that they had like 800 agents out there or something like that, but they only arrested like 100 people that night or over the course of those couple of days. I'll give you another example. White and black Americans use drugs at nearly the same rates, but black Americans are still likely to be arrested, charged, and incarcerated for drug-related offenses. So when people cite arrest stats as quote-unquote proof of higher criminality, what they're doing is ignoring how law enforcement actually works and who it targets. So why are black Americans overrepresented in arrest and incarceration data? The answer isn't not genetic or cultural like they'll have you to believe. It's very structural. Centuries of systemic racism, segregation, redlining, underfunded schools, unequal access to jobs have all concentrated poverty and limited opportunity in black communities. And poverty, not race, is a key driver of crime. Yet, instead of addressing the root causes, we often criminalize the symptoms. Moreover, black defendants receive longer sentences than white defendants for the same crimes. They are more likely to be charged with harsher offenses and deny plea deals. So this isn't about crime, it's about a legal system that treats people unequally based on race. Part of why this myth spreads so easily is because of the media. Whether it's media on the television, maybe even media in the movies, sometimes it could be projected through music, but definitely on social media, especially on Twitter/X. Studies have actually shown that black suspects are disproportionately shown in mugshots, in handcuffs, and in sensational crime stories far more than their white counterparts. This goes back to what I was saying about how on Twitter especially, they love to post these videos up of black people maybe fighting or engaging in maybe some degenerate behavior. Moreover, than you'll see videos of white people engaging in the same type of activity. I just recently saw a video online where you had some white people fighting at a Jason Aldean concert, I think out there in the parking lot, and I just made a joke and said, will the National Guard be sent in for this or not? This actually creates a feedback loop, as in we see more black faces linked to crime, so we assume most crime is committed by black people. But that perception is shaped by what we are shown and not what is real. In fact, white Americans consistently overestimate the percentage of crime committed by black people because the media exposure distorts the truth. Let's be honest though, the 13% and 50% myth is not just bad statistics, it's a very racist anti-black talking point. It's used to justify over-policing, mass incarceration, and discrimination. It also distracts from real issues like poverty, inequality, and a justice system that doesn't treat everyone the same. If they actually cared about crime like they claim, they would care about solutions in economic opportunity, education, community investment, and fair policing, not fear mongering with false statistics. But we know they're not going to do that because they need a talking point and they need to, engagement farm. They need the views, they need the clicks, they need the likes, which also, of course, translates into money. So the next time someone throws that stat at you, don't even just let it slide. Ask them, where did they come up with this number and what does it really mean? Sort of like how they bastardized the word woke. Because honestly, if we're going to talk about crime in America, then we need to be ready to talk about all of it from every angle and not just make it so linear and on one particular group. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.